you are an entrepreneur, a professional, a speaker, or a coach, and although you've come a long way, it's time for you to take it to the next level. We've got you. This is the Author to Authority podcast. We'll help you use authority and influencer marketing to build your business stronger and faster by publishing a book. You'll hear from guests that are thought leaders in sales, marketing, networking, communication, social media, promotion, and business leadership. Let's do it. This is the Author to Authority podcast. And now your host, the extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson-Pinder.
Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast, and I'm excited today. I know I always kind of say something like that, but I am, because I'm with Lorraine Ball, and I'm excited because we're talking about content SEO. Now, you may think, what's so exciting about content SEO? The thing is, when you get it right, it's exciting. When you get it wrong, there's crickets and more crickets. Lorraine spent many years in corporate America, and after too many years there, she said goodbye to the bureaucracy, glass ceilings, bad coffee, and followed her passion to help business owners succeed. And then today, she's a successful entrepreneur, author, professional speaker, and host of a weekly marketing podcast called More Than a Few Words. And I'm the word ninja, so I love that title. And she loves bringing creative ideas, practical tips, and decades of real-world experience to every conversation. She's the founder of the Digital Toolbox community. She helps business owners use internet marketing to grow. And in her spare time, though I don't know how much spare time you'd have, she loves to travel, take photos, and you can see her photos at lorraineball.com. Lorraine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Kim. I'm excited to be here.
So before we get started, because this is your first time on the Author to Authority podcast, but probably not your last, I would just love for you to share a bit of your business story. You know, how did all of these things take place? Because I read them in your bio, but it's like, I love the details.
You know, it's funny when people ask me, so how did you get here? You know, was there a clear path? I would love to tell you there was a clear path. There wasn't. Things happened along the way. I actually have a degree in elementary ed, and I like teaching. I just don't really like the that word again. I don't like the bureaucracy. And I also discovered that when you're teaching, you spend a lot, especially if you're teaching elementary school, you spend a lot of time really kind of being alone because it's you and 25 or 30 children. And I love the adult conversation. And so that was never going to be a long-term thing. I worked in retail. I sold oil field supply and went back to grad school, got a degree in marketing, and thought I was going to go to work for the China company, Lennox. Ended up at Lennox Industries, the heating and air conditioning company. The funny thing was, it was never anything I thought I would like, and I loved it. I loved the industry. I loved working with all of the independent business owners who were kind of out there making it on their own. And after enough years of that, where I'd come up with these ideas and my management would be like, yeah, no, we can't do that, I finally said, yeah, we can. So I started Roundpeg. It was a traditional agency. And then it became a digital agency because I started it in 2002. There was no Facebook. There was really no LinkedIn, Twitter. None of this existed. And over the next 20 years, I built a business selling products and services that did not exist before I started the business, and kind of came full circle back to teaching, because what I find with a lot of small business owners is a desire to control and to understand what's going on. Maybe they want to do it themselves, or maybe they just want to ask better questions. And that's where the toolbox came, and the podcast. 2 years ago, I sold the agency so I could just focus full time on the podcast and the online training, and I'm having fun.
I love what you said there about business owners. It's true. You know, as a business owner, I'm at the point I don't want to do everything. In fact, I can't do everything. But I believe as an entrepreneur, I should be able to do every single aspect of my business. And so usually before I bring someone on, I'll learn how to do it myself.
I think that's a wonderful approach. As my agency grew, I knew how to do everything that my agency did. So what that allowed me to do is two things. And I think number one, when I hired somebody, I could train them to do it the way I wanted. If I was smart, I hired someone who could do it better than me and I could
Yes.
learn from them. But also if for whatever reason they were on vacation, they had a job change, and I had this hole in my organization, I never panicked because while I was looking for that next perfect person, I could do it. Too often, I think business owners get trapped where they hire people and don't bother to find out really what they do. And then they get a little desperate when they leave because they just don't know how to replace them.
Well, and I think the other thing too is, how do you know if that person's really doing their job properly?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've heard so many horror stories of people who just hired someone because they didn't know how to do it, only to find out later that A, they weren't doing it right, B, they were destroying client relationships,
Mm-hmm.
C, they were stealing money.
Any and all of those above. And it's a nightmare. And it doesn't have to be that way. I don't think that business owners have to do it all themselves. As a matter of fact, I advocate for, like you said, you have an assistant with the podcast who does a lot of the legwork. So it
Yeah.
frees you up for the higher level things. I think you have to, if you're going to grow, I think you have to hire people.
Yeah.
Whether you bring them in or you outsource that, but you need to know what to ask. You need to know the questions so you know what you're hiring.
Well, and ultimately, it's your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we've hired people and think, oh, I don't have the responsibility for that anymore. It's your company. Ultimately, the buck stops with you on everything.
Absolutely.
I so agree. Like, you have to know whether the person's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
And, I don't micromanage. So I tell all of my team members, I don't call them employees, I call them team members. And I say to them, I said, listen, I'm going to teach you the way I do it because that's the only way I know how to do it. As long as you get the job done in a moral and ethical way, I don't care how you do it.
Absolutely. It's that whole idea of, look, this is a football field. We have to get the ball down to the end of the field. You can run it, you can pass it. I don't care what you do, but you got to stay within these
Within the field.
guardrails. If you run on the sidelines, we're going to foul or whatever they call it. Yeah, you can tell I'm a sports person. Should not use sports metaphors, but the truth is, you have to stay within this field. Now, what you do in the field, that's up to you. It worked for me, so I'm going to go with it. And I'm glad to hear that that's how you approach it.
Well, it's funny. I learned how to do this. My best friend and I, she was the first team member that came into my business with me. And so it was a bit weird. Like, it's funny, we had flip-flopped over the years because she ran a company, a brick and mortar business, and there was times she needed help. So I was her employee. And then when my ghostwriting got so big, it turned into a publishing company, she was my employee, right? So over the years, we learned how to separate our friendship and our work relationship. And we made promises to each other that we'd never let the two interfere with each other. But what we realized a very, very long time ago, and even though she's my absolute best friend and I love her to pieces, we have very different styles. Okay. I call her the planner princess. She has a planner for everything. She plans everything out to the nth degree before she does it. And she has to think everything through to the nitty gritty before she's ready to work on something. And you don't throw things at her because that just sends her life into confusion. Me, on the other hand, I'm a go with the flow person. Let's just get started. We'll figure it out on the way. We'll fix it up as we go along. Right. So very opposite styles. This is where this, don't micromanage. So I would show her and then I'd say to her, listen, you figure out your own way, because she, the planner princess, right? But it worked for us because I gave her the freedom. As long as she was doing what was needed to be done, it was done on time, because sometimes that could be an issue with someone who plans. They don't always get it done. But as long as she was getting it done on time, I didn't care what system she put in place. And so we learned. And she also learned that I was a go with the flow. So, I learned to let her do things slowly, even though it would drive me nuts. But she also learned that sometimes she's just got to go with the flow. So we balanced it out and we worked well together. Because I gave her the freedom to accomplish the goal the way she wanted, like you said, within the guidelines, within that football field. I mean, it's not even today's topic, but I think this is just something really important for entrepreneurs to understand. If you micromanage, you're going to make not only your life miserable, your employees' lives miserable, and ultimately your clients and customers' lives miserable.
Absolutely. And you raised an interesting point, and then we'll stop and we can talk about content. But one of the things that you guys did was you found the yin to each other's yang. And there's real power in recognizing this is my strong suit, this is yours. They are complete opposites. Yes, we will make each other crazy, but we'll pull each other along a little bit. She'll force you to slow down. You'll force her to speed up.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened. I planned more. And when I threw things at her, she just learned how to do them. Well, I want to give you lots of time to talk about SEO content here, and we're going to shift gears. But I think that first section was just completely off topic, but completely valuable at the same time. So, Lorraine, I'm going to let you loose for a bit to talk about it, and then, we'll stop, ask some questions, we'll talk it through, but I want to give you lots of time to share.
Okay. So what is content-based SEO? People often ask me about it and where I came to it. And basically, quite a few years ago, SEO was much more of a game. It was all black hat tactics and keyword stuffing and, weird linking strategies. And I would look at this, and I was working on my clients' websites, and we were doing some content work for them. And I said, I don't think this is a good idea, because if you game the system and you bring people to your website, yes, you're going to win search. Good for you. But the people who come are not going to be the people who really care about what you have to say. You're not actually going to sell anything. So this whole exercise is just that it's a waste of time. Honestly, I don't think this is a good strategy. We started focusing on content and really writing blog posts and articles and putting rich content on websites that answered questions.
Yeah.
I remember there was an update. It was the, might have been the Panda or Penguin update. Google came out and said, look, we're going to shift our algorithm and we are going to focus on content. And I remember I had a lot of friends in the business who'd been telling me I was leaving money on the table, that I could make all this money if I would just do these linking strategies and things for my clients. And I kept saying no. And the funny thing was, the day after the Google announcement, there were two companies that basically ceased to exist because their whole model was about link building and gaming the system. And guess what? The rules of the system changed.
Yeah.
My clients, it was a non-event for us. It actually was good because overnight, the content that we were writing was actually getting more visibility. And so that's really the foundation of where this whole process came for me. In terms of what it is, the best way to approach this, and you're an author, you're a words person, you're going to love this. You start with questions. What are the questions that you get asked on a regular basis? What is it that someone needs to know as they move through your buying process? Start making a list of all those questions. Go to your inbox and look at the emails that you've answered recently. If you have a customer service team or a sales team, go and do that and just start building this list. And that's where it starts. Then what I want you to do, and I call this hiding in plain sight. The answers are actually, Google is right there. Go to Google and type in what you think is a good question. And funny thing happens. You'll see that question, the answer come up, but you'll very often see a question section pop up with people also asked. Look at those questions. Are those good questions? Most of the time, some of them are. And then what do? Click on one and half a dozen more questions open up and half a dozen more. You could spend hours going down that rabbit hole. You don't have to take all of them. Pick your favorites. Pick the ones that you're like, yeah, that's a really good question. It's a really good way of asking it. Now, what I want you to do is go back to your website. Go to your search bar. Don't type in keywords. Type in that question. What comes up? Do you get a blank screen? Do you get one blog post? Do you get one page that's kind of related? I almost don't have to tell you the obvious. You've identified these questions. You think they're good questions. Google has identified that these are questions people are asking. It is
Yes.
related to your product category. Hello, put some content on your website. When I say this, people are like, oh, and funny thing, we were working with a flooring company. When I asked him, like, what do people ask you? And he said to me, I get asked all the time why we have to replace the subfloor. Okay, I go to Google, I get variations on the question. I go back to his website and I type it in, and you know what?
Nothing.
Nothing. So first thing we did was write a blog post. Why do I need to replace the subfloor? Funny thing, it did well. People were interested. What material do I use for the subfloor? Good. Next question. How long does it take to replace the subfloor? And all of a sudden, you start to find this group of related questions. So now you've got the questions. You figure out what you need to answer. Now start connecting the content. This is the other thing. When Google, and I don't hear people talking about it this way as much anymore, but the term spider, that the Google spiders would come to your website and they would crawl. And what they're doing is they're looking for related content and links they can follow. And so you need to create a path through your website.
Yeah.
And you do that if you write 2 articles on a related topic. For more information about subfloors, read here. Interested about scheduling an appointment for your subfloors, go here. And you just kind of put those connections.
Yes.
And so those things will add way more value to your website. They will give you a core for your social media, for your newsletters. You're not creating 2 different kinds of content. I mean, and I can go on about this, I don't know, for hours. I teach a course in this, but that's really the gist. What are the questions?
Yeah.
And how do you answer them?
Wow. It's funny. I actually knew that, but I've never heard it explained that way. And it's like, that just really makes a lot of sense. And I'm thinking through, because I'm in the process of just, completely redoing everything, redoing the websites, just redoing everything and pretty well starting from scratch on a lot of areas, because the things I was doing just wasn't working. And I was thinking through my content strategy for the year, and I actually came up with 52 different topics. But now I'm going to go back, and I know those topics are questions that are asked, but I'm going to go back and actually do it the way you said and go into Google and see exactly how it's worded, because that's what word ninjas do, right? We see how things are worded. I think you are a true word ninja, my friend.
As long as I'm talking, my mother said I was born talking. When you were talking about, I think before the show started, your process where you write and then you do the other pieces. I'm high auditory. That means I have to hear it out loud first. So I talk things through. I do a presentation, then I think, that's good content. I should record that, transcribe it, and then craft it into something. And it's just how my brain works. But yes, it is all about the words.
And, you brought up an important point there, because I think some people think, I have to do it this way. No, you don't. One thing I've learned through this process of, teaching people authority, marketing, positioning, how do you get seen, is your writing skills and your verbal skills have to be on relatively the same level. One can't be significantly weaker than the other. But what I realized through the process is most people are one or the other. And, it comes back to the visual, audio, tactile type things. Some people are better writers than speakers. So if you prefer to write your blog posts out first, write your content out first. Then create the audio podcast, then create the video from what you've written. And a little secret, if you're using a laptop, what I used to do is I'd have Word open. I'd just be staring straight at the screen, and I'd use my mouse as a teleprompter. And sometimes I would be reading stuff, and I'm really good at reading. I can read in such a way you don't know that I'm reading something, because I would practice it till it sounded completely natural. But I would read the videos sometimes, and I'd stare straight in the camera, and I'd smile, and I'd make inflections, but I would be reading it. I've actually won online speech contests doing that because I would read, because sometimes I didn't get the whole speech memorized. And I would just read, and I've won contests doing that. Right?
And you know that works for you.
Yeah.
I have it's way too long a story, but I have had horrible misadventures when I try to read my presentations because I don't track every word and then I lose my place or whatever.
You're not a visual person.
No, I'm auditory. And so for me, if I have 5 words on the screen, like just on the side, and those are the 5 things I need to talk about, I'm fine. And interestingly, when I have to write blog posts, I very often will dictate them.
Yes.
And then transcribe, and they are way more interesting because there's more of, that's how I get me into my writing.
Yeah.
If I write to a plain piece of paper, it's kind of it feels stiff. It doesn't feel authentic. And so it is totally about finding your voice and finding a way that works for you.
Works for you. Yeah, exactly. And that's that was the opposite of what I was going to say. For some people, it's about speaking it out. It's about doing the video or the audio first and then taking that to writing. And even at RTI Publishing, when we're working with our clients, that's one of the things we determine in the beginning is, we write their chapters for them, but what's the best way for them to do revisions? So for some of them, they actually do the revisions on the copy we send them. For others, it's having those conversations and then we kind of do the revisions. Like we customize it to each client's needs, because we were getting frustrated because clients weren't doing the work. But then we realized they just really couldn't do the work. And so we came up with these other systems. So I love that. I love that. Now, it says in your bio that you are an author.
When I first started my business, a friend of mine told me, if you're going to do public speaking, and that's what I wanted to do, and if you're going to go to conferences, you have to have a book. And so I've actually written 2. They were both self-published. The first was The Entrepreneur's Notebook. It was released in 2002, which is a marketing strategy. The second one was Business Map, which was a guide to business planning. I'm actually in the process right now of updating both of them, because a marketing book written in 2002 is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just a little dated, but I'm very excited about a new project that I have that is going a little slower than I thought, but we're making progress. More Than a Few Words is my podcast, is 13 years old. And over 13 years, I have talked to so many amazing, amazing people. And I'm currently putting together a collection of articles by many of my guests. And I think I have about 15 or 16 articles, and I'm going to write some of the in-between chapters to fill it out. And I would like a few more before I start assembling it, but I'm going to publish a collection, and we're going to call it More Than a Few Written Words.
Nice. I love it.
So I'm hoping that will be available right around the beginning of April. And you'll be able to learn more at my podcast website, morethanafewwords.com.
Awesome. So actually, by the time your episode comes out, hopefully, because we're recording this in February, hopefully your book will be done. And so morethanafewwords.com if you're interested in that. So I'm going to ask you a question that I ask every author who's been on the show. What was the good, the bad, and ugly of self-publishing those 2 books?
The good was the process. It really forced me to organize my thoughts around the topic, and particularly on the business planning one. I mean, I had been reading business plans for 7 or 8 years, hundreds of plans a year. I knew what I wanted to say, but doing some research and finding out how other people approached it, the learning those things were the good. The bad. It's so funny because it's so much easier now. I signed up for Amazon self-publishing, and they have a template. I agonized over the layout of the text. If I was publishing a printed book, I probably still would agonize a little bit more, but the emphasis with the Amazon online publishing is on the content. It's on the words. And so the bad was really overthinking the layout. I read all my books on my phone. So all of that great formatting is wasted on me. Tell me the story. So I think
because with Kindle, you can change the formatting to whatever you want.
Yes. So Let it go. Just let it go. So I think the bad was definitely overthinking things that in the long run didn't matter. It was pretty painless back then. I found a good self-publishing company and they worked with us. And okay, one more thing. You don't have to do this anymore, with on-demand printing. But I mean, I was doing this. My first book was '04. I think the second book was '07. I sold or gave away at conferences almost all of the original printing of the first book. I have quite a few of those business plan books left, because you had to print so many, and you don't anymore. And so that was ugly. But I priced them in a way that if you are going to lock yourself into printing 500, price them in a way that you break even on 100. Because then you can give away. If you think you're writing the next great American novel, I think that's one thing. But if you're writing it as a book to build authority, to send as a preview of your speaking, or to negotiate a higher fee for your presentation, then build into your cost the fact that you're going to break even after you sell 100 and give the rest away.
Wow. I loved what you said. And I actually wrote that down because I think that is an incredible quote that I hope you don't mind. I'm going to use it a few times, but overthinking what didn't matter. Loved that. I've got to admit, Kindle formatting's pretty easy now. Print formatting's still a bit of a beast. We're working on one of our clients' books, and the cover, we've been working on the cover, and even though we've been trying to get it exactly how Amazon wants it, it's out by less than 1/10 of an inch, and Amazon won't pass it. And we're like, and do you know how hard it is? It's not that easy adding that little bit of a piece to a book to make it work, on an edge of a cover that's not even going to be in the printed area. Frustrating. So
I actually I was looking at the Amazon covers, and I feel your pain. I've decided that I'm going to do text with basically everything is going to be on white space. So if I'm off by 1/10 of an inch, fine, chop it off the end of the whites. I know, but not every design will work that way.
No. And I mean, we're getting it done, and it will probably be done today, but it's just like, seriously, Amazon, like, there's nothing in that space, right? There's no wording, there's no graphics, and even when they print the book and they cut all that off, it's going to be cut off. So I explain to my clients that some days KDP is nice, and it's in a good mood, and it likes you.
Some days it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. What I would love for you to do, Lorraine, talk a little bit more about your podcast, and then how can people connect with you?
So I'll answer the question in reverse. Look for me on LinkedIn. Yes, there are other Lorraine Balls, but you'll know you've got the right one when it says podcast host, author, whatever. That's me. So the best way to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. Come on, say hello. Tell me you heard me on Author to Authority, and we can chat about this and other things. The podcast, More Than a Few Words, is a marketing conversation for business owners. It's a mixture of shows. There are short episodes that are just little marketing tips. They may run 1 or 2 minutes. And then there are conversations with marketing professionals that run 10, 12 minutes. And the format is very deliberate. My audience, they're business owners. They got a lot going on, and they're not sitting and watching. They're putting in their headset and they're multitasking. They may be in their car. They may be sitting in a coffee shop. And I found that the short episodes really work, and people really like consuming that shorter content. Well, and the other thing is that if somebody has a lot to say, we bring them back.
Yeah, exactly. I've done that too. Like, I used to let the episodes run really long, and now it's like, okay, if it needs to be continued, we stop, and then we just start the thing back up again, and we record episode 2, because some topics are just, you're getting into the meat of it, and it's just, it's not the right place to stop. I found, like, we do half-an-hour episodes, which our audience seems to like it, because it gives us enough time for them to get some really great, good, practical, technical information. So yeah, and I think, it's the same thing with podcasting. What works for you? Does shorter episodes work? Do longer episodes work? It's about testing. It's about seeing. Some podcasts are an hour, 2 hours long, and they work. Lorraine, thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Lorraine Ball and Kim Thompson-Pinder on the Author to Authority podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the very next episode. Bye now.
You've been listening to the Author to Authority podcast. The extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson-Pinder, has helped over 200 entrepreneurs, professionals, speakers, and coaches write and publish their books that have become incredible marketing tools for their business. And many of those have gone on to become Amazon best-selling authors and have used their books to land high-level clients and get on big stages. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at www.authortoauthoritypodcast.com. See you next time.